Welcome to Athlon U. My name is Braden Gall, and I did not get Hard Knocks canceled, but you can follow me on the internet.
I'm Stephen Lassen. I did not get Hard Knocks canceled. I have rarely seen the show, but I do enjoy the episodes I've seen. You can read all my work at athlonsports.com. Follow me on Twitter at athlonsteven, Stephen LCFB, Facebook and Instagram, and also on Blue Sky. Up-tempo approach there, Braden.
Watch the show on Athlon Sports YouTube page. Thumbs up, notifications turned on so that you know when the new show hits every single week. We do appreciate you guys for listening. And if you're listening on a podcast app of choice, please rate, review, and subscribe. You guys know the deal. That's how people find us. Write a review, 5 stars only. If you do not give us 5 stars, you are a
hater.
That is correct. There you go. Group of 5 dream road trip today, Stephen. And this one's pretty fun because you get to pick from a bunch of different conferences. The rules are a little bit more like our traditional dream road trip, which is that you can only see a team one time. And you can see whoever else you want. You can see anybody that you want, but you can only see them one time. That's sort of the old school traditional national road trip rule. So we'll get into that. But I got to start with this North Carolina thing. And I do not want to talk about how Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson met. I do not want to talk about traditional male-female roles in a relationship. I do not want to talk about old men and young women. I do not want to talk about any of that stuff. I'm not even sure I care. I mean, I probably would read about it, but I don't care about the Belichick, Robert Kraft conspiracy theories either. I don't need any of that. I have one question for you, because I assume you're up to date on everything that's taken place. Do I need to break anything down here for the folks that are listening? Do I need to lay it out for everybody? Or
I'm guessing this is as a result of what the CBS interview and then the subsequent statements and book tour and all that. Is that where we're going with this one?
To me, it's a combination of everything. So Hard Knocks, of course, was going to be at North Carolina. They announced they were going to start filming on March 1st. The Athletic reported this week, of course, that, and they have lots of details about this, that basically Belichick's girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, who's a 24-year-old, wanted to basically have a lot of control over the Hard Knocks process, and that's where it broke down. And before they even started filming, Hard Knocks, which is a subsidiary of the NFL, said, no, this is going in a direction we don't want to take it in. Then I saw the interview like 2 days later, by the way. Was it Saturday morning?
It was on Sunday morning.
Sunday morning?
CBS,
okay.
Yeah.
So it looked like it was Baghdad Bill. Like it looked like a hostage video to me. His shirt has been tattered. He's been tossed around the jail cell. She's off camera, like interrupting the interviewer on questions. Like it's clear that she has control. She supposedly is the COO of Belichick Productions, that company that no one can find exists anywhere. It's clear that she is exerting control over the messaging and over the image of Bill Belichick. And so here's my only question, because I don't care. I honestly, Stephen, I don't care who you date and how you date and where you've met and what you guys are doing, who your preferences are and what you want to do in your own private bedroom. I don't care. I don't. It's America. Do whatever you want. I don't care. What I care about for this podcast and for you and our conversation is North Carolina football. And my question is, how much more of this is still good for North Carolina? Because Hard Knocks would have been a huge coup for North Carolina football, in my opinion, to showcase Bill Belichick, to get free exposure. And by the way, they were going to make a bunch of money off of it. HBO and NFL were going to pay North Carolina to do all this camera work and to have all these production crews on campus. My question is, how much more of this is worth it for North Carolina?
That is a very good question. I've seen some of the takes floating out there that what kind of odds would you get that Bill Belichick actually coaches a game at North Carolina? I don't think we're in that territory. I think at this point, with Belichick, it's amazing to me that we have gotten to this point because he was the king in the NFL of no distractions. We're on to Cincinnati. Just keep going. Forget, don't let anything interfere with the process. And so the fact that a simple question in an interview has caused just this plus some other things is kind of amazing to me.
Doesn't he look like someone has a gun to his head when he's trying to answer those questions?
I know, and
He
now
looks like a hostage.
all I'm thinking about is, like, is Bill Belichick gonna be on, like, the new season of, like, 24 or something? Because now you got, like, this hostage thing that's in my mind, so
Not
I
like that's like a 2006 reference there, big guy.
yeah, I'm trying to bring it back, okay? One episode at a time.
I thought you were
Uh,
gonna like, is Belichick gonna be on the next episode of like Love Is Blind?
I don't even know what that is.
Too hot to handle is more like the appropriate
Uh, I
terminology.
see, you're way out there for me because I don't even know what any of that is, but I will say, I think for North Carolina, it's probably this is probably this if they win games in the season, like, none of this matters. I mean, if they get TCU in the season opener, they play Clemson, in October, but I think what's interesting about their schedule is outside of those 2 games, Charlotte, Richmond, UCF, Cal, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake, Duke, NC State. There's not a ton of, like, I mean, realistically, they could, I don't think they will. They could go 10-2.
You could accidentally win 8 games this year.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the argument about Mac Brown was he had good players, he maybe didn't get the most out of them. A lot of them have left, graduation or transfer portal, so they are an interesting team, and I will just say this as far as, thinking ahead and whether or not it's worth it. I am not overly impressed by their portal class or their coaching staff. They may luck their way or win their way to 8 games this year, but I am not overly impressed so far.
Look, to quote the great Cat Williams, "Toxicity is exciting." So again, this isn't gonna go anywhere, and so I agree with you. As soon as the games happen, nobody cares, and if you win 8 or 9 or 10 games, nobody cares, but you know what else happens? You get more interest. You get more requests for media. It's not just this was like a self-inflicted wound by Belichick by doing this book tour, which I think it's also hilarious. There's part of the interview also that I love about Belichick where he's just like, I didn't name the book. This is like publicists and like PR people. And it's like, that's such an honest answer because that is what happens. An author of
Yeah.
a book gets an advance, writes the book, has the title. And then that author who has the title has to fight with the publicist and the publisher and the PR campaign to try to keep their own title because they're going to want to clickify the title in some way, shape, or form. And I love that Belichick is just like, yeah, I didn't even name it. I was going to name it like Life and Lessons from Bill Belichick on a Football Field. Like it's the dumbest title ever. And sure enough, it's like The Art of Winning or whatever. That was self-inflicted. The whole thing, the setup, the interview, her interrupting, becoming the story, having to hire a PR for it's all self-inflicted. And again,
Yeah.
toxicity is exciting.
I do think
All
the
monsters are feeding off something, to quote Cat Williams.
This is a Cat Williams special here. I do think the Hard Knocks would have been good for North Carolina, though.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about, like, a program that, has, I think, fair to say, large ambitions pending realignment coming up. A lot of good things going for it. You have a Hall of Fame coach, maybe some would say he's the greatest NFL coach, taking over a program. It's great exposure for him, and just the fact that he fumbled a CBS Sunday morning interview, which is, I mean, it's a very easy interview to do and has created this firestorm as a result of it.
Also, it's what's hilarious about that interview is that 0 recruits will ever watch CBS television on Sunday morning.
Sure.
Like that.
Yeah.
There are no young people under the age of 25 watching that show. That was exclusively for like old people that are going to buy the book.
Yeah.
What Hard Knocks would give you is access to brand awareness amongst younger folks. And this is where I think, honestly, I'm sure there's going to be long form movie. This, the is it Matt Damon and Ben Affleck that were in the Jordan Nike movie?
Yeah.
Like really, really good
Mhm.
movie. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a really good movie. If you don't know, of course, Nike gets their start because they convinced Jordan to sign with Nike and not all the other hot shoe brands. This little tiny upstart in Oregon. There is going to be a long form study of how Oregon elevated its brand awareness and status with nothing else other than like some gimmicks and really good brand ideas, really good marketing strategies. And then that led to good football players, which led to better football. And sure, they made some really good investments and they have great fans and all that stuff. But the first thing you got to do is raise the awareness that you exist. You have to get North Carolina into the general consciousness of young people so that they know that they can go there. And you know how you do that? Lots of clips from HBO going viral. That's it. And now they have none of it, and now they have clips going viral of this weird situation where Bill Belichick looks terrified of his 24-year-old girlfriend.
I think that like
Uh,
a Hard Knocks thing could also do perhaps some image improving from on Belichick, and I obviously you and I, we watched him with the Patriots. We know what he can do as a head coach. I also think there's a perception. I think if you're a recruit and like the other coaches are going to play up, he's grumpy, he's out of touch, yada yada yada. Maybe you get him on Hard Knocks, showing him like coaching up some defensive linemen, get a little behind the scenes, having some fun. It could have done, I think, good things for his perception, and certainly wouldn't have hurt in recruiting. There was no, I don't think there's any downside to it.
yeah.
If they continue to say they want to be the 33rd NFL team, which we've heard nonstop teams and coaches have said for years, if they want to do that, this would have been a good opportunity to sort of solidify that place.
I just don't even remember how Saban got this rap as sort of like the mini Belichick, right? The hard ass who's always sort of like grumpy and,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't think if you want to try to rehab your image as a softer side of Bill Belichick, hilarious, go for it. Honestly, I don't even think you need that. I think you just need I am the greatest of all time, and here I am
Right.
I'm coaching here. Come play for me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go win championships. Like I don't even think you need to soften the image or soften the edges. Just be Bill Belichick. The problem
Yeah.
is, and this is ultimately what I'm getting at here, that interview did not look like Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
It just didn't. And so again, toxicity is exciting. And I'm not here to tell Bill Belichick what he should or shouldn't do. Or this is about North Carolina and how much more of this can you take that it's still worth it to have a 73-year-old doing what he's going to do on the football field, which could be great things. And so maybe it's all totally worth it. I just think the more interesting question is how many more of these moments, these situations, can you afford and still get away with what you're doing? And maybe it's all of them. It's not, none of this is fireable. It's more just like, dude, this is a huge headache. You just need to come in here and be a football coach.
Yeah. I think there are some larger questions, especially with involvement of certain people in PR and football and all that. There's fair to wonder how much of that is just wears on people. I think right now it's still very much worth it to hire, like I
Sure.
said, maybe the NFL's greatest coach. I don't think we've even come close to that point because, like I said, it's May. I believe that he's only done one press availability, and that was like before spring. So like he just like after the spring game, he just left, and
There's the
so
Belichick I know and
yeah,
love.
right. So I guess at ACC Media Days we'll hear from him, and then again we're right into the season. So I think it becomes a larger issue if they like get blown out by TCU. Or they get off to a slow start or losing games they shouldn't. I still think if they win some games,
Yeah.
I think this will be in the background, and unless some other massive like story breaks.
Isn't it well documented that they met on a plane? Isn't it
I
fairly
thought
well
so
documented?
too.
I don't understand why she got all pissy about that question. Anyway, so here's last one here before we get to our group of 5 road trip. And I just want to ask you quickly, is it normal to suspend your coach for games 3 and 4 of the season?
No, it's not. I applaud Michigan for the creativity, though. Yes.
So I guess so. Sharon Moore, of course, you can go read all the details about what deleting text messages and stuff. I'm like, he's going to be suspended for 2 more, even though their first response to the allegations was like, absolutely not. This is the most egregious investigation. Nothing to see here. Now it's more like it depends on what your definition of is right before their final hearing coming up. I guess the first week of June for Michigan. Look, this Connor Stallions thing is just one of the funnier now to me as a non-Michigan person. It's one of the funnier stories that it's got this much of a tail to it, and there's this many ripple effects of all of this. What do you make of them? Is it admission of guilt to suspend him 2 games? Is it them laughing at the NCAA by pushing it to games 3 and 4? Like, what is Michigan taking this seriously? Are they not taking it seriously? It will not include Sharon Moore's alma mater, which of course is Oklahoma in week 2. A huge game for the Big Ten and the SEC. It will include a road trip to Nebraska, which could have been which frankly on paper looks like a really big game in the Big Ten, which is week 4. But I guess it's going to be Central Michigan. You cannot make this stuff up. He's
The
going to be on the field for his alma mater against Oklahoma. He's going to be off the field for Central Michigan, which if you know, you know, and then off the field for the Nebraska game. I honestly can't tell. I think it's Nebraska saying, yes, this is kind of something we need to handle, but being real cheeky about it.
Yeah, I think that's kinda where I land too. There could also be a little bit of a plea for, leniency, maybe once you get into the penalty phase with all the NCAA, and it gets complicated, of course, from here. Maybe saying, "Hey, look, we suspended our coach for 2 games," although that's quite a t
I've
3 and
I
4
I
is
have
kind of.
I've literally never seen someone suspended before the season, like months before the season, not the first game or the second game or the third game. Like I've never seen that.
You know,
In 20 years of doing this, I've never seen it.
the ultimate trolling would have been to suspend him for New Mexico in game 1 and Central Michigan in game 3 and say he's Oklahoma and he's back for Nebraska.
I
So,
I guarantee you their first pitch in a meeting was that, and they looked at each other like, "We're not gonna get away with that."
right?
Do you wanna do Oklahoma or Nebraska? What do you wanna do, coach? Well, I wanna coach against my alma mater. Okay, we'll give you Nebraska then. All right.
Could have also just, like, randomly said, "No, he'll miss the November 1st game against Purdue,"
How
and
good would that be?
right.
I think it's they're trying to, like, weasel their way out and get this thing over with, while also sorta saying, like, "We kinda think it's ridiculous." You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's
Yeah.
they're trying to thread the needle, and it's hard to thread, and they're you know, it's funny. I thought it was funny.
I've never, seen something like that.
Yeah,
It's very trollish for sure.
it's something. All right, those are your great headlines. We got Andrew Luck this spring. We got so many great headlines. Okay, so
Ron Rivera and the Ferrari?
I know, I love it. All right, group of 5. Rules are you can see every single team one time. All 100, I guess 136 are on the table here, but got to have a G5 team in the game. Can't see a team more than once. I've got our early March rankings here that I'm going to use as sort of sort of a touch point for everybody who wants to know where these teams are ranked. Only 2 group of 5 teams are ranked. 3 technically are in the top 50 if you count JMU at number 50. Then you only have about like 8 or 9 or 10 teams inside the top 80 on top of that. So you got about 10, 11 teams inside the top 80. Then everybody else that's supposed to be good, at least according to our pre magazine rankings, are kind of in that. There's about 20 teams in the top 100. Everybody else is post 100. So that's where I focused, of course, on my road trip. So let's go week number 1. Stephen Lassen, where are you going?
So I had a goal for all of these games, which was either, you mentioned all 136 teams were available. I wanted to focus on like G5 matchups. I thought the G5 team could win in non conference play and games that mattered or rivalries in G5 conferences. So, week 1, a showdown in Florida with the reigning top Group of 5 team, Boise State, visiting South Florida. I love this matchup. Could mean a lot for positioning later in the season when we get to playoff talk. Byron Brown back for South Florida. So give me Boise State at South Florida.
Okay, so you're going number 1 and like number 5 in all of the G5 ranks. Boise State is potentially a top 25 team, probably number 1 in the G5. And South Florida is a top 2 or 3 contender in the AAC. So you're going 2 of the top 5 best teams in this exercise right out of the gate in week number 1.
You bet. I think,
It's a great game. It's a great game.
yeah, I also say I think Boise is pretty far ahead of everybody in the Mountain West, and it's hard to find a game for them. I think within the Mountain West that makes sense as that could be competitive. Let's just say that.
Okay. I agree. I wish the game I picked was in a different location to make it a little bit more balanced, but I think there's one in there, especially without Ashton Genty. I think there's one in there that you could have used. So we'll see. I am going to go to. I agree with your point on home games by G5 teams against other power teams or high quality rivalries or top flight G5 versus G5, which is most of my schedule. But week number 1, I am going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because I did not want to use up Boise State and South Florida in week number 1. I did not want to use up Tulane or even Toledo, although Toledo could be interesting at Kentucky in week 1. I wanted to go deep South rivalry where they hate each other. And I'm going Mississippi State at Southern Miss. Neither team is good. But that game in Hattiesburg, I think could be super interesting and super fun. So give me Mississippi State at Southern Miss week number 1.
A thought on that game. First of all, Charles Huff, the new head coach at Southern Miss, great hire. He was an assistant, of course, in the SECs. I think he's very much a rising star in the coaching ranks. Also,
Agree.
Southern Miss has imported several players from Marshall. that won the Sun Belt championship. I think they're going to be sneaky good this year. So I would say that's a dangerous game for Mississippi State.
That's why it's on the list, big
Yeah.
guy. For sure. And I know Southern Miss has got other rivalries, right? They've got the rivalry with Louisiana Tech and Tulane and a bunch of other ones. But I wanted to see in-state Power 5 against G5 on the road in a game they could lose. I think
I
they'll
love
be
it.
favored. I think Mississippi State's better, but they could lose that game.
Yeah, week 1, dangerous road trip for sure. Week 2, I am going to Las Vegas to see UCLA at UNLV. A huge opportunity for Dan Mullen and the Rebels in week 2. Let's see what Nico and UCLA look like by that point as well.
Dude, seeing Nico's a really nice blend. I've seen a lot of mock drafts, by the way, with him in the first round, top 15. I think that's hilarious. But Nico is going to be one of the biggest storylines of the entire year, just to see how he develops over the course of the season. So, going to be a lot of fun. You've used up basically 3 of the top 5 G5 teams in 2 games. Are you okay with that?
No, not really, but there's a lot of paths that you can take with this trip with the
Okay.
G5 teams.
All right. I am going to the long-standing, long-played since the year 2012 6th meeting. This will be the 7th meeting in the I-35 rivalry. Give me UTSA hosting Texas State. That is correct. You got one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AAC in UTSA, and of course, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Sun Belt in Texas State. Give me those 2 in non-conference play in week number 2. I think that's great. We need to get that rivalry some more hype, man. I'm trying to get them on Hard Knocks.
I love all Texas showdowns. I've got one on my list coming up. That's a great call because both those teams a lot of new pieces, and it could be plenty of points in that game too.
Look, the top of the AAC is super interesting.
Yes.
I know Tulane's probably the best team, but they're Navy, South Florida, Army, UTSA, Memphis, all good. Then you got ECU and North Texas sneaking around back down there. It's the AAC once again going to be awesome to watch. Mountain West also. So
Yes, for
all right,
sure.
where are you going?
I am going to the Darien Mensa Bowl for week 3. Duke at Tulane. I think there's a chance that Tulane could win this game. You think revenge factor here for Tulane with their starting quarterback now on the other side. A lot of new faces for the Green Wave, but in John Sumrall, I trust. I'm going to New Orleans for Duke at Tulane.
I am right there with you. First student body to 1,600 on your SAT wins the game. Duke at Tulane. This is one of the few where I think, again, G5 hosting P5. In this case, you've got one of the best group of 5 teams in Tulane and a team that won, 9 games last year in Duke and Manny Diaz's first year. You got 2 really great defensive minds in Summerall and Diaz. Going to be a lot of fun there. And, of course, the quarterback controversy right at the center of it. Tulane couldn't afford him, but Duke could with that ACC money. That's a great matchup, too. I really wanted to get Tulane. There's so many good games on Tulane's schedule, honestly.
Yeah.
They will host Northwestern. They got to go to South Alabama, which is another all good G5 in week 2. You got Duke this week. You got to play. Who else do they have? At Ole Miss in week 4. They have a brutal schedule to start the season. So Army's the other one that's like that. I think Army's got a bunch of really tough games in the non-conference. But I'm with you. Duke at Tulane. There you go.
All right. So for week 4, I am going to a showdown in non-conference play with James Madison at Liberty. So thoughts and prayers to anybody trying to do Conference USA predictions this year. Because it's a mess. But I think Liberty's probably going to end up being the best team. I think there's a chance that James Madison's the best team in the Sun Belt. Good chance to see both of them in week 4. So I like James Madison at Liberty.
How far away are those campuses, by the way? I've never actually looked at the geography, but I'm with you, man. I'm there on the Liberty campus, Bibberty. I'm at the Bibberty campus, hosting James Madison. In the early rankings, you have JMU at number 50, and you have Liberty at 74. The next team in your Conference USA early rankings is like Western Kentucky in the 90s. So you've got Liberty well ahead of everybody else in Conference USA right now. Not as much in the Sun Belt. There seems to be a little bit more competition, but you clearly have a lot of faith in James Madison being a top 2 or 3 or 5 group of 5 team.
Yeah, a lot of that is like over in the West, I really don't have a great feel for who might be the best team. And in the East, you got Georgia Southern Probably going to be solid. Coastal, maybe bowl eligibility, App State, Marshall, and maybe Old Dominion's the sleeper there. What I'm getting at is it feels like James Madison's probably the favorite with personnel plus what's going on around the division. Liberty and James Madison separated probably by about 2 hours driving wise.
96 miles.
Yeah.
That needs to be a rivalry every year.
It's kind of one of those. It's a game that almost feels like it should be a conference game to some extent because they're so close.
It will be soon enough.
Yeah.
Either one will change, or they're both change, or they're going to combine. Who knows? But that's a really great rivalry there. It needs to be played almost every year. And I'm with you. I'm there. I'm JMU at Liberty. I'm with you.
So we're at the same location 2 weeks in a row?
2 weeks in a row. And this is a wider swath of teams that you could pick from. So there we go. Back-to-back trips together. We're going to New Orleans and then the mountains in Virginia.
Right.
All right. Week 5, excuse me.
I'm going to a Thursday night showdown. I wanted to fit this team in somewhere. Had a hard time because the other rivalries. So I'm going to Army at East Carolina. Thursday night showdown. Good contrast. Obviously, Army replacing Captain America and Bryson Daly. East Carolina improved late last season with the coaching change and some of the things they did offensively. So good contrast in styles. Good chance to see Army and see what East Carolina looks like in week 5.
Army will play at Kansas State, which is fascinating. They'll host North Texas. They will go to Tulane and Air Force in October, which is interesting, and to UTSA. A lot of really tricky road trips for the troops, for the military there. And I'm with you. I am in Greenville. I'm with you. Army at ECU. Now, also, we needed to mention this. I put Tuesday games counted towards the week before. Wednesday, Thursday games counted to the week after. Just wanted to clarify that. We probably should have said that on the front end. But Thursday absolutely counts as week 5. The Saturday is September 27th. Army at ECU. Army is a fascinating team this year, because they also have to replace their superstar quarterback that was a Heisman Trophy caliber player.
Also lost a couple players on defense to the transfer portal. One to Georgia, and one corner did decide to return. One defensive back still out there. So, yeah, Army, going to be tough to run it back, but very capable in the AAC.
Really fascinating week that week. You got App State at Boise. You got Georgia Southern at JMU, which is a big one there. You got the Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan rivalry that's been played over 100 times or whatever. In that one, you got New Mexico State, which has also been played a bazillion times as well. You got South Al at North Texas, which is an old conference rivalry there. The one I really wanted to go to was San Jose at Stanford.
Yeah.
Is it possible that San Jose could go onto the farm and win?
Yes. I think they can.
I really wanted to. For some reason, I wrote that one in there first. I was like, man, I really want to go to this game. Why? It's a P5 location, which is cool, with a little in area rivalry there with the G5. I like those kind of G5 P5 match, like Northern Iowa versus Iowa. Like, I love those kind of matchups.
San Jose State also beat Stanford last year too.
That's right. They could win. They could easily win this game. So. Unless Nerd Nation comes out in full force, we'll see. So I'm going with you though. Because I needed to get Army in there, and I thought, you know what, a road trip to ECU. ECU is not considered one of the top tier teams in the AAC, but they are right there on the top of that next tier. So that could be a really dangerous road trip early in the year for the troops. So there you go. All right, week number 6. I'm going to start here first before we go to where we're going. Boise at Notre Dame might be one of the most interesting P5 G5 games, P4 G5 games, I guess, in the entire calendar year. And I really wanted to have that as my Boise State game, but I couldn't do it because if it was Notre Dame at Boise, I probably would have picked it. I don't know if Boise can go in there and win with some of the personnel losses. I mean, Notre Dame should be fine with some of their personnel coming back, even though they lost a lot too. That was the one I wanted. What was your top game that you didn't get on the schedule? Do you have one?
Probably Boise State, Notre Dame. I think just location, intrigue, opportunity for Boise State to pull off an upset, all those factors. But yeah, that was the one I wanted to get to and couldn't.
How about, sorry to do this, Arkansas at Memphis?
Yeah.
That's a really good one in week 3. I really like that one.
Arkansas State, Arkansas early in the season too.
Yeah. Army at Kansas State.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I think that one's interesting and could feature an interesting situation. South Florida, I think, will play at Florida and at Miami in back-to-back
Yeah.
weeks. That's
Yes.
brutal.
And the Boise State game. That's, like, an
That's right.
insanely difficult schedule for, South Florida right out of the start of the season.
3 top 25 teams in a row, all on no, you get Boise at home. 2 on the road, and 2 of them probably top 15 teams,
Mhm.
probably. Okay, week number 6, where are you going?
Staying with the service academies, we're going to Air Force at Navy. Thinking ahead a little bit here, obviously great rivalry, great scenery. But one thing about Navy is they remind me a lot of Army last year with the experience coming back, experienced quarterback. We've seen teams that have a lot of experience typically translate to success in the transfer portal era. So I've got my eye on Navy with a favorable schedule. Air Force is a little bit of a mystery. Played a lot better late last season, but there's some mystery surrounding their starting quarterback because he's not on the roster. So bottom line is week 6, Air Force at Navy should be a good one.
He's stationed overseas, but we can't tell you where he is.
Right, it's not a secret
He's on
mission.
a special mission. I'm with you, man. 4 in a row. I'm with you. Air Force at Navy, Commander in Chief trophy. Leg 1 at least of that Commander in Chief trophy. The next one is Army at Air Force in week 10. So, and then of course we all get to go to the Army Navy game at the end of the year. Navy, you've got in the top 60, so the 4th or 5th best G5 team in the entire country. Air Force, you've gotten to rank number 80, and this is all again very early rankings before the magazine comes out. And they are a top 3 or 4 team in the Mountain West. So again, I wanted the one I would have preferred Army at Air Force because that puts Air Force sort of the lower team at home with a chance to pull the upset. But things happened, couldn't get to that game later, so I'm right here with you. Air Force at Navy. That's 4 straight, Steven. You better not come with me on the next one.
All right. Well, I'll tell you where I'm headed. I'm going to a fantastic rivalry in the MAC. Toledo at Bowling Green. Toledo, I think, could be the preseason favorite in the MAC. You got Buffalo, you got Miami, you got Ohio. Bowling Green, Eddie George taking over this season. Fascinating team to watch. I could not turn down the opportunity to go see this bitter rivalry up in the MAC.
The battle of the I-75 trophy. It's not the battle of I-75. It's the battle for the I-75 trophy, which
Right.
they've played 89 times. This will be the 90th meeting between those two. And when you throw in Eddie George in there, I think that's a good one. This was a week that was very thin. You got South Florida at North Texas. You got ECU at Tulane, which is good. Air Force at UNLV is a really good one in the Mountain West. I was using those teams elsewhere, so I could not go to any of those. So I took where do I want to go and see like a halfway decent game. I'm going to the islands, baby. Give
Oh,
me
good
give me
one.
Utah State at Hawaii. This was exclusively a play to get to the islands and, maybe see a win. I think there's intrigue with both of those coaching staffs and those programs. Which direction are they going? There's interesting offensive stuff that's going to happen in that game, right? So
Oh, yeah.
give me Utah State at Hawaii. I like your Toledo Bowling Green, but I think I'll be in a slightly more picturesque location.
Yes, you will. I am very much stationed on the Hawaii could have a breakout season getting to a bowl. So I like that call there for
There you go.
go
Got to
see the
get to
Rainbow Warriors.
the G5 road trip, man. You got to take a big old plane out to the island. So, okay, week number 8.
Mentioned this earlier. Texas Showdown. I like points. I like offense. I'm going UTSA at North Texas. I think North Texas they are going to score a ton of points. First of all, from even despite losing Chandler Morris to Virginia, but their defense is fascinating because they have imported their defensive coordinator and several players from Sam Houston after they had a good defense last year. So fascinating experiment there. UTSA returns 0 starters on the defensive side of the ball, but they bring back a lot of firepower on offense. So set the over under at, I don't know, 70 something. Give me UTSA at North Texas in week number 8.
I really like that one. Army at Tulane was a game I just, for some reason,
Yeah.
really intrigues me. I just really like Army at Tulane that weekend. I could not go to that one. I could not go to UTSA at North Texas. How about this one? UConn at Boston College.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one there. This was my number 1 game on the season, though. And I kind of thought about trying to play it elsewhere and go elsewhere. And I know you got the 2 teams already in week number 1 and 2, but UNLV at Boise decided so much last year in 2 meetings. I know the championship game didn't go the way that UNLV wanted, and this game, of course, is in Boise as well. Look, this is maybe 2 of the top 4 or 5 G5 teams. It's probably the top 2 teams in the Mountain West. You now have Dan Mullen out there. Like, I just think there's a lot of fireworks here. in this game for whatever reason and however it looks. Break it down for me. Tell me why you sort of were the other games you used them more important to you, or do you think that UNLV Boise isn't going to be as important or as close as it was last year in the regular season? It was great.
Yeah, I think you're right because I think these are the two best teams in the Mountain West. Now, what's interesting is if you look at UNLV and you look at list of players returning from last season, they're basically all gone. So it's basically a play that, hey, Dan Mullen's really good. They've also added some pretty promising pieces from the portal. But I really wanted to see that Boise State South Florida game, and that's kind of why that one sort of dictated a lot of things. I
Yeah,
just think,
I get it.
South, difficult schedule to start. You get Boise at home. I think it's an interesting showdown. So that kind of dictated my choice there for the Mountain West.
No, that really was the thing. It's like, do I want to go to Boise, South Florida, which right out of the gate is Boise being the top G5 on the road against another top 5 G5, but on the road and early in the year could be more dangerous. Certainly, I don't know. I'm going to Idaho in middle October and hosting UNLV. I just think it's gonna be fun, and I get to see Dan Mullen. So there you go.
I love it.
All right, week number 9. Where are you going? By the way, JMU at Texas State would count on this week if that's the direction you wanted to go. But I think I've seen both of them already. So
I am going to fulfill one of my desires at the start of the road trip, which was to see interesting rivalries in the G5. I'm going to the border war. The Bronze Boot is at stake when Colorado State and Wyoming play in week 9. Wyoming did not have a great season last year. I'm not sure they're going to be a lot better this year, but Colorado State took a step forward under Jay Norvell. They were in the mix to make the Mountain West Championship game until the very end. I think they're on the right track. Here's Wyoming trying to pull off an upset. So rivalry, maybe some implications for both teams, bowl, conference championship. Give me Colorado State at Wyoming.
I could argue that was also the top game that I missed. 116 times these two teams have played each other, and for the team that's a little bit better to be on the road against Wyoming, I think that's really intriguing. It makes it a great trip. You got the altitude printed on the field right there.
Yeah.
So I do like the hats, right? The hats that have
Yeah.
the altitude on the hat. I think that's cool. Aren't the Broncos or aren't the Denver Nuggets doing that right now? I feel like.
Think so. Yeah.
Anyway, I just blacked out after the Knicks beat the Celtics in game 1. Go Knicks, baby.
Right.
All right, I'm going. This is also a big one I circled. This was a big one I circled in the conference, which could decide who gets to the AAC championship game. South Florida at Memphis. You could argue this is 2 and 3 in the AAC. Could be 3 and 5. Could be 2 and 4. We don't know. By the time they play, it could be 2 and 3. We don't know. If Tulane falls, they could be 1 and 2. But I think there's a good chance that South Florida at Memphis could decide who goes to the AAC championship game, and a little trip down the road to Memphis for some barbecue and some blues. I'm good with that. Give me South Florida at Memphis. And frankly, right now, South Florida is the quote unquote better team. So the better team going on the road, always something I'm looking for when we talk about these dream road trips.
I think there are probably 6 teams that have a case to be picked in the preseason as the favorite in the AAC, and those are 2 of them. So that's a good call.
All right. Okay. Week number 10.
Going back to the MAC. I couldn't get to the Eastern Michigan Central or Western Central. So, hey, we got to get one of the Michigan rivalries in here. Central Michigan at Western Michigan. Western Michigan took a step forward under Coach Lance Taylor last season, get into a bowl game. Central Michigan, interesting coach in Matt Drinkall. He was incredibly successful at some of the lower levels. He was also at Army last year. So they are a fascinating team. As always, with the MAC, right now in the portal era, both these teams decimated by losses, so it's really hard to get a good read on them in the preseason. But you can't turn down an opportunity to see a rivalry game. So CMU at Western Michigan.
The Victory Cannon.
Yes.
95 times they've played for the Victory Cannon.
It's a great trophy.
Bill Belichick, I feel like, has a Victory Cannon. Anyway. This is okay. So I'm curious what you think of Washington State and Oregon State, because you do not have them ranked very highly at all. You have them ranked essentially in this exercise. You have them 90 and 91, which would be like behind 20 Group of 5 teams. Yet their budgets and recruiting prior to this dissolution. What's the right word of the Pac-12?
Yeah.
They still had bigger budgets and better recruits than most of these teams. They are going to play twice this year, home and home between the two, which is great. I tried to go to Washington State because I thought that'd be more interesting at the end of the year. Instead, I'm going Washington State at Oregon State in week number 10, November 1st. You got lots of other good stuff. Fresno at Boise, Army at Air Force, as I mentioned. Tulane at UTSA is really good. Navy at North Texas, and the one you're going to, the Victory Cannon. Washington State at Oregon State. I wanted to see them, and I kind of like you could see the Apple Cup, you could see the Civil War, but it's like those could be very lopsided this year.
Mm-hmm.
Although probably not considering the nature of those rivalries. But I just thought I was trying to figure out what's the best way to get them both onto the schedule. And I was looking at I thought Oregon State at Texas Tech early in the year, right, is really interesting to me for some strange reason. Washington State at Ole Miss is really interesting because that's the game that USC bailed out of, but also just an interesting matchup. But then I was like, no, I want to see them against each other. So it's Washington State at Oregon State in Corvallis on November 1st. I'm there. There you go.
I like that call. Admittedly, I kind of struggled with the idea of placing them into the G5. They were kind of like tweeners. They're not like Power Five right now. They're not Group of Five. So maybe I just felt like guilty for including them in there. You bring up a good point, and this is something that I wrestled with this season because when the UNLV job opened up and Washington State was also open, I was kind of going back like, is now Washington State still a better job? Even now that the Pac-12 is much different, is UNLV better? So, how do you feel about that? I'd be curious to like. You still think that Washington State's the better job?
I think it's based on their projected revenues and
Yeah.
budgets, honestly, because like UNLV has been that program we've talked about for years as like, oh, it's a sleeping giant. They could be really great. They've got this good recruiting base and lots of money in in the city that they can sell, and they haven't really figured it out ever at any point with any coach in any era. And now they got the new stadium. I think they figured out a plan, which is hire fired P5 coaches who are pretty good at what they do, and so that means they're going to have a certain floor, right? Like Dan Mullen's got a certain pretty high floor, Barry Odom pretty high floor, a pretty high floor, and I think if you told me that because I know the Pac-12 has a new television contract, at least for the short term. If you tell me that the new Pac-12 with some of the Mountain West teams has some chance to survive, and they have equal revenue share, maybe it's UNLV. I just haven't. I think it's hard to and this is what I think is lost on like you and I who don't live in like the Pacific Northwest. I think, and this goes back to our previous conversation about North Carolina and Oregon, the brand value of being a power program for like 75 or 100 years is really hard to overcome.
Yeah.
With a few dollars, right? Like UNLV might have more money now or equal money now. I still think in that region of the country, if you do 10 or 12-hour radius around, maybe it needs to be 15 hours around Pullman, like I still think the majority of kids growing up in that area or in the western portion of the country have a bigger affinity or understanding or knowledge of Washington State. They've played in Rose Bowls, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So I think it's hard to reduce that brand capacity and image with just a few bucks unless it happens over time, right?
Yeah.
Like if UNLV is making the same amount of money for you than Washington State for 10 years, all of a sudden UNLV probably closes the gap pretty quickly, maybe.
Yeah, I think that power conference designation and having USC, Oregon, Washington carried a lot of weight.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting. That was a good in season debate that I was wrestling with when the coaching jobs were open. So something we're gonna have to watch.
And honestly, it's not an accident that Oregon State and Washington State ended up as like the only two Power 5 teams left out.
That's unfortunate. I hate it. Yeah,
but it's not. What I'm saying is, it's not like I don't know. Like on the East Coast, they still care a little bit more about football, a little bit more. Now, those are, I would say, Boston College fans and Wake Forest fans are not as good as Oregon State and Washington State fans.
I would agree with that.
There's just not enough of them. Like that's the issue to move the needle from like a value standpoint when these companies do all this math around money.
Yeah,
it's not a surprise that those two are the two that we're talking about being left out. That's the unfortunate part of this. So, all right, week 11, where are you going?
A very important game in the Sun Belt. I am going to Texas State at Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns won the West last year. Texas State kind of fumbled some opportunities, I thought, to perhaps make a bigger run at the division. They lose a ton of talent. They're going very heavy into the portal. Still think they might be the team to beat in the Sun Belt West. Good luck sorting out South Alabama, Arkansas State, and these two. But I'm going to see two of the best in Texas State at Louisiana.
I like that one. I didn't have that one on my list, actually, so you kind of surprised me with that one. UNLV at Colorado State this week, Tulane at Memphis, which is a really big one there, Navy at Notre Dame, which has obviously got a ton of implications. How about this one? Duke at UConn. It's a battle for basketball supremacy over the last 20
Could
years.
have a doubleheader maybe by that
Uh,
point of the season, right? Football, then basketball.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to Deeper Than Hate, a rivalry that's been played since 1932 over 40 times. Give me Georgia Southern at Appalachian State in the beautiful mountains of Boone, North Carolina. Georgia Southern could be good this year, too, by the way. App State, we'll see what they are. But Georgia Southern could be good. They're one of your top 15 or top 20 G5 programs. They're on the road, a rivalry. To your point, I wanted to find some rivalries as well. And any excuse to go to the mountains of North Carolina, I'm good. So give me.
Yeah, Braden, that's a great call because Georgia Southern is going to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. And then Dow Loggins and App State. We'll see. There's a lot of new pieces taken over here.
If you want to know what Steven really thinks about something, it doesn't. You have to read between the lines, but not too hard. Georgia Southern, really interesting. Could be a really good team in the Sun Belt. Dow Loggins is the coach for App State, and we'll see.
I'm saying we'll see because I want to see the rest of the portal ads. They've accumulated some nice ones this spring. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Week number 12.
Well, speaking of hate, we're going to the 100 miles of hate. Middle Tennessee at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky could be one of the better teams in Conference USA. Love the pickup of Maverick McIver, the quarterback from Abilene Christian. They are going to score a ton of points. Interested to see if Derek Mason in year 2 can get Middle Tennessee better because there's a lot of opportunity to move forward in Conference USA. So give me Middle Tennessee at Western Kentucky.
So it would have been great to get my alma mater in the 100 miles of hate rivalry there, Middle Tennessee. I just don't know if they're any good this year. And I think Western, again, one of the top 2 teams in the Conference USA, probably a top 3 team in Conference USA. I had to get a MAC team or a MAC game on my schedule. And if Toledo is the pick, the clear kind of front runner in this conference, which according to the rankings they are, you've got Ohio, Miami of Ohio, kind of second and third. I wanted to see they're going to play only one of them, I think, right? They don't play. Does Ohio? Where am I finding Ohio? This is the one where Toledo in conference is going to be threatened by somebody else that's challenging. From what I like when I look at the rankings, because you've got Miami and Ohio, of course, the rivalry there. They're playing on a Tuesday. I had it listed in a different place. That's why I couldn't find it. On a Tuesday back in early November, I'm going Toledo at Miami of Ohio. It's the road trip that it could be the toughest road trip in the conference for Toledo. Obviously, Bowling Green's a big rivalry, but this is the big one on the road in terms of 2 teams that could rematch in the championship game. So I wanted to get a MAC game in there. It's kind of funny that, like, if you get more than one MAC game into your schedule, you are kind of like doing it for other reasons than great football. You're doing it for like, oh, Eddie George is the coach. Oh, this is a great rivalry. Oh, this has been played over 100 times. It's the MAC is they've got a great brand, but it is not great football right now.
I'm a sicko for college football, so I will take any MAC game. Also, one storyline in Toledo at Miami, Taquan Finn, who was the Toledo quarterback a few years ago, transferred to Baylor. He's now the starting quarterback at Miami of Ohio. So that's got some serious implications there.
All right. What else you got?
Well, speaking of the MAC, I'm in week 13. I'm going to Miami of Ohio at Buffalo. The Fighting Pete Limbos might be Toledo's biggest obstacle in the MAC this year. Interested to see Daquan Finn. Buffalo brings back a lot up of a team that was much better last season. So Miami of Ohio at Buffalo is my pick for week 13.
All right. So that's look, I am not suggesting that you don't like the MAC. I'm suggesting as a point of fact, it's the worst conference in college football.
Conference USA is also, yes, giving it
It's
money right now.
That's true. MAC has a much better brand. There's no question about that. They figured out how to brand themselves, and they've geographically they own their area, which is also impressive and well done. And I will, along the lines of the Big 12, Stephen, it does come and go quickly. As a team, you can come and go quickly in the conference. There's no question about it. I am going to a game that has been played 101 times. It'll be played 102 times this year for the Silver Spade, New Mexico State at UTEP.
I love it.
I want to go out to UTEP. I can't tell you the stories as to why, but I want to go to El Paso.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get on record. I think UTEP's going to be the breakout team of Conference USA this year. So
Anytime two teams have played more than like 70, it's phenomenal college football in general. And while this one doesn't have a whole lot online, I needed to fill something in this slot, and I already used Miami of Ohio. Washington State at James Madison is interesting this week.
Yeah.
ECU at UTSA is interesting this week, and you got Colorado State at Boise, which is interesting. All of which are very good games. I used all those teams elsewhere, including Miami of Ohio. So I had to pick a fun rivalry in a 102nd meeting in the Silver Spade.
I love it.
Give me New Mexico State at UTEP.
Rivalries, Conference USA bowl implications, maybe. Yeah, I think it's a good call.
All right, there you go. I appreciate you patting me on the head. All right, where are you going in the final week of the season?
A crucial game potentially in the Mountain West. I am going to Fresno State at San Jose State. Matt Ince, the new coach at Fresno State. I think Fresno State will be much improved. San Jose State does not play UNLV, and they do not play Boise State in the regular season. That could be very important for positioning late in the year. So a little California showdown to wrap up the G5 road trip. Fresno State at San Jose State.
I like this. We went to a lot of games early in the year, and then we're coming back together in the Battle of the Valley, the 88th meeting between San Jose State and Fresno State. I am right there with you. Fresno at San Jose State. Two teams that you kind of did all the work there, but could obviously be upper third teams in the Mountain West. Rivalry, season finale. Give me some of those West Coast temperatures in November. I'm good with that. So look, if you filled up an entire schedule of AAC games and Mountain West games, I think you'd have a really good schedule, a really fun schedule. And that's not meant to knock, JMU or, Liberty or Toledo or UConn or South Al. It's just, I think those two conferences are going to separate themselves this year, and we're going to have really good games almost every weekend in those two leagues.
I think to go back to something you and I talked about last offseason, we know less about these teams than ever before. And that's even true in some of these smaller leagues because they're adding guys in the portal right now that could start this season.
Yep.
There's just so many teams in the MAC and Conference USA and some of the bottom of the Sun Belt that have so many new players that they are a complete mystery going into the fall. So it should make for another interesting season for sure.
Give me the last question here, and we'll let you guys go. Thumbs up, notifications on the YouTube page, all that good stuff. Write a good review. We do appreciate you guys listening. Follow us on the socials and athlonsports.com. Where is, if you take the bet, these number of teams or the field for the spot in the playoff, where is the line for you? Is it just Boise State and Tulane versus the field? Because what I want is an even bet. I want like plus 105 and plus 105, right, to make it an even bet. Is it Boise, Tulane, JMU plus in the field? Where is the line where you start to take? You see what I'm saying? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I would throw. I mean, I think you'd have to throw a few more teams from the American in there. Like honestly, I do think Navy is a very serious contender to be the top group of 5 teams this year.
Right, but if I say Boise State, Tulane, JMU, Navy, or the field, what side are you taking?
I'd probably take the Boise side of that.
Okay. If I say Boise, Tulane, JMU, are you still taking the 3 teams or the field?
Probably taking the Boise side of that. Yeah,
okay.
I'm getting a little less concerned. Yeah.
Boise, you get Boise and one other team. Tulane?
Okay.
Or the field.
Still take Boise, I think.
So you think the bet is Boise versus the field?
Yes. I think so.
Interesting. Would you take the field in any of them? Sounds like no.
No, well, I mean, it's a pretty enticing bet, though. I mean, you get.
I would take if it's a roughly even bet. I would take the field versus Boise.
I think the odds would, yeah. I think on paper everything favors Boise, but if you give me that wide, man, I could talk myself into the field there.
That's what I'm looking for. Is where's the balanced bet? Where's the middle ground? What's the right question to ask? Which is again, is it Boise State, Tulane? It sounds like you would be all in on Boise State and Tulane.
Largely because of Boise, yeah.
But you get a second team to back up your pick, right?
Yeah, I know this is probably a larger conversation, but Tulane's got so many new faces. Like if you gave me Boise versus the field, I'd probably still take Boise, but I wouldn't feel great about it. Yeah.
There you go. Everyone's chasing Boise, and that was our Group of 5 dream road trip. For Steven, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.